Hey, RetconRaider here, and welcome back to Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader. As today, we get the full picture from this Rogues Gallery. Though I do fully suspect that we're about to trigger a final encounter of sorts. Perhaps the mysterious Murd key arriving now that we've conveniently disabled all the traps. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and knock out this level up first. And once again, pretty straightforward. In fact, this is exactly the same thing we got last level up. One first-tier talent and one skill slot. So for the most part, we're just following up on things we were already setting up last time. Val, for example, will go ahead and grab Combat Insight, essentially a permanent +1 AP. And then for skills, we've actually capped our secondaries, so I guess we'll just start investing in Medicae. That's one pretty much all our characters can use. For Abby, I did consider some potential offense boosts, but I think we'll just grab Cautious Disengage. Extra mobility whilst tanking will easily outweigh a few extra points of damage here and there. And then, of course, Medicae. No reason not to. Which brings us to Pask. And in his case, although it was tempting to just go full Tech Priest, I think we'll actually just go ahead and re-bank Joint Offense. That's one he used to have way back in his first build before I re-spec'd him a couple of times. Not the most impressive boost, but it is party-wide, so I feel like it's earned the slot. And then, once again, Medicae, which in his case is actually slightly more important than for most of the others, since that's what his medical nanobots scale off of. And Kibbles, as if she weren't already deadly enough, we'll pick up Rising Tempo, up to a plus 15% damage boost every round, at least once she really gets going. I mean, obviously contingent on there being plenty of cannon fodder to go around, but that does seem to be the case in most non-boss fights. And then obviously she's already capped on Medicae, so I suppose we'll just keep boosting Demo, which did actually come in handy last time around. Ulfar. He will go ahead and grab Rack and Ruin. A nice chaser for his suppressing fire. A nice chunky damage boost to his second attack each round after the opening grenade or flamer shot. And then, of course, Medicae. Which finally brings us to Cass. And she, although she does have several potentially interesting options, we'll keep things simple. We'll just grab Blood of Martyrs. We tend to front load pretty heavily with heroic actions these days, so now, every time we do, the character performing it will also gain an extra 30 to 40 temporary wounds. And then for skills, she's the second exception to not taking Medicae, since of course we still have her covering 4 different skills: Coercion, Commerce, Imperial Lore, and Persuasion. So we'll just keep cranking those. And that's it. Level up complete. So now let's hop up top. Get some Murd key context about what really happened here. Empty canisters, dry ration wrappers, and petrified feces. Someone was cooped up here for a long time. Gross. A subdued rumbling comes from under the cover of the ancient cogitator, as if the machine spirits resent being awakened. After a few simple directions from the control panel, the vid screen flashes to life, then starts blinking, waiting for your input. Log. The mechanism lazily grinds its gears, but grants you access to the requested information. Records tagged Big Pew. Day 21. 3rd month of the cycle. Now that's what I call good fortune. We hit the jackpot. The Xenos peddler, Stryx, sure did show up in time. The competitors have been popping up like fleas on a half-dead rat. Key has already brought a bunch of rare and exotic shit, and I have never been paid this much for a single order before. Life is good thanks to him. Or her. And is going to get even better. Stryx. Huh. Can't say I'm familiar with that one. Day 6 of the 9th month of the cycle. Nice. It is time to end this. The thrones are coming in faster than I can spend them, but I'm starting to lose count of the people who died. Yesterday I walked past a dozen of my people and I couldn't recognize 4. The customers are starting to ask why there's so much blood on the delivery crates. Damned if I believe that crooked-ass Xenos rat again. His deliveries are killing my guys, and there haven't even been any shootouts. Next time Key comes here, he won't be leaving this place alive. I'll make sure of it. List of reports. Received. 6 crates of tech upgrades, 4 blocks of Tau firearms, 8 units of miscellaneous Drukhari devices. Sold. 7 units of Aeldari devices, 5 orc weapon crates, 3 units of Tau artifacts. Awaiting delivery. Received. 8 crates of orc armor, 12 blocks of Drukhari blades, 10 units of Aeldari devices. Sold. 8 units of Drukhari devices, 3 blocks of Tau firearms, 15 units of devices belonging to an unknown race. Overhead costs. Disposal of bodies. Keeping an eye on Doe. I've got a bad feeling this won't be the last of it. Doe, that's the one who went crazy after picking up an Aeldari artifact. We found him dead in a pool of electrified water. Received. 24 units of unidentified artifacts. Let him stay unidentified and in my room. Sold. 18 units of Drukhari, Aeldari, and orc firearms. Stolen. My own people are stealing from me now. What did that scoundrel Key promise them? I'm gonna find out, and there'll be trouble. Vox recorded conversations. Jen, did you hear? They're gonna bring in another batch of Xenotech. Oh, okay. Right, this is one of the Vox recordings we picked up earlier. So he was eavesdropping on his own people's Vox comms. Which does make sense given the line of work, but also given his growing paranoid delusions. No doubt exacerbated things. Oh yeah, and there's the one with Doe. And his late mate, Arlie, who we also found dead. As well as the fate of the other assorted men. Interesting, so he was aware that the merchandise was bad for his men, but over time seemed to also become convinced his own men were stealing from him. Started hoarding the goods himself. And then clearly at some point his plot for revenge against Key essentially expanded to his own crew as well. Which I suppose would also explain what we're seeing right in front of us. His own men who clearly breached his command post at some point, killing him but also dying in the process. The whirring of the obsolete cogitator's mechanisms grows into a strained whine, and the crackling from the abandoned tracks abruptly stops. Yeah, he's long dead at this point. If we'd shown up any later, it seems like the whole thing would have shut itself down regardless, given the low reserves of promethium in the generators down below. Oh. Meteorite shard. Still warm to the touch. Barely perceptible electrical impulses ripple through the veins of metal, making it glow. Definitely has the look of a chaos artifact to it. Hello. Spontaneously appearing artifacts. Priceless Xenos weapons, jewelry, and peculiar artifacts. You have not noticed them here before. Right, yeah, it expressly stated they were like garbage and dried feces before. Which does explain a lot. If this meteorite was making him see garbage as treasure, it would certainly explain why he would assume his own men were stealing or otherwise depriving him of priceless treasures. Interesting. I wonder if that was given to him intentionally to drive him mad, or it was just a random dangerous artifact he happened to pick up. Given the nature of the goods Murdkey was sending him, either seems pretty plausible. Though it also makes me wonder if there's something else we might be able to uncover now that we actually have it in our possession. Yeah, let me give this whole place a quick once-over before we hit the exit. Just to make sure nothing else pops up while we've got the meteorite in tow. And we're back. No, nothing. No new caches, no ambush on the way out. No prompting to decide what to do with the place once we left. So I guess that's it, at least for now. Which I suppose means we set our sights on the Finger of Sorrow, and then Spaces Beyond. Which does now suddenly include a path into the Cauldron. An area we previously speculated about but never had open access to. But it would seem that it's tied to Cassia's thing, since yeah, it's coming out of Orselio prophecy, which certainly seems to imply that this is where we'll be finding our mysterious Mind Palace, along with our Explorator allies and various other things we need to take care of. And then, of course, we've still got all this stuff over here as well, so no shortage of things to do. Bit by bit, we continue chipping away, tying our various loose ends. Permission to report, Lord Captain. Sourback's voice is resonant. Mistress Cabela has been apprehended by enforcers at the scene of a crime. Eyewitnesses saw her assault and kill the esteemed Surgeon Majoris. She has confessed to the murder. Oh shit, Forius, really? That's actually kind of funny, because I was just wondering why he had yet to be included in any of the major DLC events, but I guess this is it. Can't say I saw it coming. The penalty for murdering a senior officer is death. However, given Mistress Cabela's honorable service and her special status, I dare not proceed without your permission. She is incarcerated and awaiting your judgment. Let me know when you are ready to hear her case. Right. Wow, and here I was all hopped up to go Tyranid hunting. But I guess we should really probably take care of that first. Scriptorium School up and running, which at this point just leaves payment in organs, which again we're not doing, since that would of course push us into the negatives on complacency. And then we've got this, Holy Ammunition. Getting closer. Alright, let's go chat up Cabela, see what in the world's gotten into her. Perhaps she believes Forius was somehow in league with the Gene Stealer cult. Which would make sense. He was responsible for the senior staff, which did include Heinrich Montag. Hey, Cece. How you doing, girl? So I guess Sourback then. Lord Captain, Mistress Cabela is awaiting your judgment. Would you like her brought in? Yes, please. In light of recent events, we should probably get this resolved sooner rather than later. Let justice be done. Lord Captain, a murder has been committed on this ship. The victim is one Letard Forius, Surgeon Majoris. The perpetrator was apprehended at the scene of the crime, admitted her guilt, and did not resist arrest. Cabela appears cold and apathetic. Her unblinking eyes stare vacantly, her expression odd. The Forius clan invoked a ship's tradition and summoned a requiescator to testify on behalf of the deceased. The masked man bows, stiffly and decorously. I'm sorry, what now? I'm fairly certain you just made that word up. When there is no one to speak for a deceased person in the court, their representative is entitled to seek assistance from a member of the Requiescators Guild. Their duty is to know and remember each and every person on this ship, so that they can defend the interests of the deceased and represent them in court. They study the victim's entire life history to gain the most detailed impression of their personality, deeds, and aspirations. The guild was founded by one of your distant ancestors, and, to my knowledge, the Requiescators only exist on our glorious flagship. Oh, sure, yeah, why not? How very convenient. But wait, didn't you just say that Forius had family on board? Why entrust this task to a masked stranger? The clan to which the deceased belong are wary of bringing accusations against the Lord Captain's companion, and the esteemed Letard never made any courageous friends in his life, having always preferred his work to the company of others. Yeah, alright, that tracks. So, despite Forius' lack of friends, you claim to somehow know him? Please, demonstrate. The masked head lowers, and the man strokes his chin contemplatively. He was fascinated by diseases, injuries, pathogens, complications. The part he disliked was the patients. They would not let him concentrate on that which was killing them. Yeah, I mean, I guess I can't argue with that. That does sound like him. Kibbles, are you feeling okay? You seem a bit out of sorts. More so than usual. I am fine. Cabela turns her face toward you slightly. A whisper escapes her lips. This is just hollow ceremony. Pointless. Right. Well, what exactly happened? The eyewitness accounts didn't give us much. The deceased and the murderer had a brief conversation, following which Mistress Cabela beheaded the Surgeon Majoris. The witness did not overhear any details of the conversation. And Kibbles, you did do this. You killed Forius? Yes. Neither the surgeon's death or her own impending punishment seems to trouble Cabela. Her pensive, dark gaze wanders around the bridge. It was me. Despite my standing instructions to the cult prohibiting public executions. Cabela fixes you with a long stare, as though struggling to comprehend what you have just said. Then she sighs. That matters little. You cannot prevent death from taking. It simply takes. Yeah, that is how it goes sometimes. Could I ask why? The heartless man took on a burden that was not his to bear. His duty was to heal, but instead he sent people to the Undying One, people whose time had not yet come. He was cruel, and had no intention of ever stopping. The Undying One never whispered his name. I myself decided to sever his thread. Oh, interesting. I told you it would end like this, but why should anyone listen to little old Jai? She shouts across the ship, shaking her head sullenly. Her colors have changed. The scarlet and the gold are drowning in the rage of muddled crimson, the misty blues of sorrow, and the impenetrable greens of doubt. These shades are all in conflict, melding together in a frenetic tapestry. You walk a narrow, dark path across a yawning abyss. It is small wonder that you stumbled. This soul, already mangled by bloody and frightening service, has fractured further still. Can it still be saved? Juliet falls silent, leaving her own question unanswered. Sure. And, B. Forius, I assume you have something to say about this? B. Forius and after? The masked man's voice is unpleasantly creaky. The esteemed Letard served this voidship and this dynasty for many years. He treated the sick and gained new knowledge as his trade commanded. He saved many, but he himself was not saved. He caused Mistress Cabela no grievance. He never offended her. He merely answered her questions regarding his work, whereupon he was attacked. And so he has the right to demand a reckoning. The death of his murderer would be lawful and proportionate retribution. The heartless man did more than heal people. He maimed them, too, tortured them, killed them slowly, and observed. I mean, that's not inaccurate. That is one of his habits that we did express concern about during past conversations and kind of tried to nudge him away from. He treated the sick and he gained knowledge. The masked head jerks up haughtily. The boots of those who walk the path of wisdom leave bloodied footprints. It is a rule that existed long before the esteemed Letard did. Right, I understand that some degree of suffering is expected when it comes to treating maladies, but was he torturing people? Unimportant people, common people, doomed people. The Requiescator shakes drops of imaginary blood from his hands with disgust. This was the esteemed Letard's way of thinking. Does a doomed leper care whether the disease or the knife is causing them pain? Is the formula for a medicine that would cure distinguished officers not worth the lives of a few dozen commoners turned test subjects? With the knowledge he gained, he invented a multitude of balms, antidotes, and treatment methods that went on to save thousands of lives. Which, I will note, are methods that I myself voiced concerns about and told him to stop using. Are you saying he continued despite that? His methods were efficient. Only one who has never lain upon an operating table would prefer a principled healer to a competent one. Oh, buddy, that is a wild thing to say to me. I have been disassembled on multiple occasions. Alright, I think I've heard enough. We humbly await your verdict, Lord Captain. Shoot. And now we're being funneled into making an absolute decision on a complex and nuanced situation. I mean, on the one hand, I don't necessarily want to let Cabela off the hook for killing an officer, even if she felt she was doing it for the right reasons. Misguided compassion. I mean, she is a death cultist, literally raised to treat death as the end-all solution for all of life's problems, which technically it is. I mean, that's how death works. But at the same time, there were obvious concerns about Letard's methods. I do feel like she picked up on Valin's concerns about those methods, but followed up on them with her usual black and white view of imperial justice. Camilla may have overreacted, but she was acting on my perceived wishes. To make it clear, henceforth, the lower deckers are not to be used in such a fashion, not without express consent. A single voice cuts through the ensuing silence. That is the Lord Captain's will, but the deceased would not call it justice. You know what? Maybe you don't know Forius all that well after all. He was nothing if not pragmatic. I can't really imagine him getting all that hung up on things happening after he was already dead. I cannot be put on trial. Cabela's words are barely louder than a whisper, but everyone hears them. She raises her head, face deathly pale, as if she is asleep with her eyes open. None have the right to judge a spinner of death. Vizier, I see that you've spontaneously become healthy enough to make your way up to the bridge. Imagine that. Only he can judge. Though the Vizier's eyes are sewn shut, one can still read the grief that permeates his wrinkled features. He whispers in a sorrowful voice, "You have strayed from the thread. You have doomed the tenets of the blood-spun web to oblivion. What a sorry end. For me, not for you. For I am compelled to usher my apprentice's soul to the other side, before it is my own time to go." Vizier, this is unexpected. What brings you all this way? To take the one who no longer sees the tenets, to give her to him. She is dangerous. To pacify her forever. Such is my duty, and so it must be. Mentor, why me? Do you truly think the greatest danger to your flock is me? Cabela's voice trembles with pain. No, there's something strange going on here. She's not acting normal. I mean, she never acts normal, but she's acting even more abnormal than usual. Given recent revelations, we should really make sure we know exactly what's happening before we take any drastic measures. The second spinner is in the throes of a spiritual ailment that we call doubt. This most terrible ailment, though harmless to layfolk, is deadly to us. For a doubtful spinner will stray from their destined thread and into bloodthirsty madness. Doubt brings them to the undying one before their time. Our service is demanding. It requires clarity and a sense of purpose that she no longer possesses. Long have I sensed the seeds of anxiety in her, but I hoped her reason would prove stronger and prevail. Alas, now I see the mark of despondence on her. Alas, I know that I am not mistaken. Okay, so she has some entirely reasonable doubts. That's no reason to put her to immediate death. I'm sure we can find some less drastic way to help her with this. How would one heal the soul of another, Daman? She is fighting a losing battle inside her mind, one she has all but lost. We cannot enter her mind. We cannot reach out a hand to her. Although, you could. A thread binds the Daemon and his shadow together. A rare thread. A shared thread. Will that connection be enough for your souls to enter into harmony? You know, I really couldn't say, but I owe it to her to at least try. Especially if our only alternative is death. The Vizier turns his face towards Cabela, who seems withdrawn, her spark snuffed out. He whispers, "Then seek a steward of souls, an artisan who will put you both in a psyker's trance, allowing your minds to become one. You have a chapel full of astropaths, Daemon. One of them will surely do you that service. See that their guidance is strong, for inside her soul you will encounter monsters. A doubt-ridden mind is a dangerous place." Yeah, well, I don't doubt that. Interesting. I'm trying to second-guess the endgame here. Obviously, I still have some suspicions where the cult is involved, but it also does genuinely seem like Cabela is having some sort of crisis of faith, which, to a certain extent, is likely Valen's fault, since he's gotten into her head, so to speak. Hey, Cece. His more iconoclastic nature has clashed with her own extreme dogmatic views. Extreme even by Imperial standards. But, you know, at the same time, I can't help but be generally suspicious of the cult regardless, even if they aren't part of the whole Gene Stealer plot. I do feel like there is something more going on with them than meets the eye. There are just general inconsistencies which have yet to really be explored, just the Vizier in general, for example. Too frail to come up and meet us in person during the original introduction of the cult, but now suddenly spry enough to make his way all the way up here by himself, just to propose killing Cabela. But then again, you know, if his intentions were in fact nefarious, why would he also suggest a potential means of actually helping her?
Always keep your eye on the prize.
As you approach, the choirmaster's blindfold lights up with a bluish glow. "Your lordship seldom comes here without a reason. How can I be of service to you today?" Well, you certainly got me there, Zach, but, while I'm here, how have you been doing? It's been a while since the ritual. The choirmaster looks away, embarrassed. "The mistakes of the past no longer haunt me, not in my dreams or in reality. But I still remember. I remember every single one of them." Yeah, well, that's not the worst thing. As I have said many a time before, it's important to learn from the past. You just don't want to get stuck in it. Speaking of which, I was told that you could perhaps help me enter a trance with Cabela. She's having some issues herself, and I was hoping to help her through them. A synchronized trance is a complex telepathic practice. Things can go awry unless both participants trust each other and have a strong spiritual connection. However, I can sense that you do. I would be honored to be your guide during the ritual, Lord Captain. But remember, it is easy to get lost in another person's thoughts, in the fears of others, house monsters. Yeah, plenty of those out here, too. Be that as it may, put me in your trance, Trancekeeper. I am not afraid. May the God Emperor aid you, Lord Captain. Sector, Coronis Expanse. Location, Von Valancius Flagship. Material, The Book of the Dead. The Holy Scripture of the Cult of the Bloodspun Web. Author, unknown. A shackled mind cannot comprehend the wisdom contained herein. Therefore repeat, He is death. Release your breath with each word, cleanse your thoughts. He is death. Truth lies in death. Free your soul from the body's cage. Become nothing. He is death. Now that your heartbeat is a perfect line and your vision is shrouded in dusk, you have almost reached a state of purity and balance. Heed. No human will see death before their time. That is the delusion of the living. Heed. To which we say, a strong spirit can travel there and make the journey back. Heed the tale of the great Daemon Valen, who descended into the kingdom of the dead to retrieve his shadow. He is death. Birth and death are one. We are snatched from a place of warmth and sent, blood-covered, into an unfamiliar world. Dying is the same. The Daemon, too, learned this as he opened his eyes and found himself on the lower decks, lying in a cold coffin. He beheld his ship, drawing through nothingness, an adamantine giant's corpse, a skeleton moaning from the winds of entropy. A tempest of rust was gnawing at its plasteel bones and twisting its vein-like cables, while machine oil oozed down its bulkheads like lymph. Had the Daemon been alone, he would have lost his way inside the ship's mangled bowels. But a guide reached out a hand to him. The spirit of old Veni Zachary had loyally followed the Daemon to the other side. Wait. Oh, okay. In the labyrinth of the hereafter, the piercing gaze of Veni Zachary discerned the thorny path to the halls of death. The loyal servant swore to protect his lord. Together, the Daemon and the Veni made their way up through the malformed frame of the ship. From the cold catacombs of the lower decks, they traveled up into the fires of the ship's crematorium. Tongues of flame licked at them, yet they did not burn. Columns of the dead marched toward them to be turned to ash in the fire, and the Daemon and the Veni walked toward the dead in turn. At the great gate of the crematorium, their path was blocked by the Executioner, a sentinel made of metal spikes and coiling blades, with roaring flame and pale, bleeding bodies writhing within. Such is a blade that has lost the strength of the tenets, a murderous monster no longer driven by faith, but by dark desires. The Daemon saw that a fight was inevitable and struck the first blow, aiming for a weak spot. The blades and the spikes fell, clanging, and turned to rust. For bloodlust weakens a blade, and the Daemon had proved as much. And a card of his tarot appeared in the Daemon's hand. It was the God Emperor, and the first doubt was dispelled. He is death. Veni Zachary led the Daemon out of the hot furnace of the crematorium, and they walked past long columns of the dead. Frayed was their attire, their bones scraped against their augmetics and scratched their decrepit flesh. They were moaning sorrowfully, and the sound made memory fade away. The Daemon saw that the dead were carrying an ark, and inside the ark was a thing, a lost child cocooned in silk, shedding crimson tears for the unknown. The unliving carried her as servants would carry their lady, and loudly lamented their fate. Such is a blade mired in broodings over a lost past, a helpless child paralyzed by regret, lest he sink into the soft rot of their wails and perish. The Daemon. Oh, shoot. maybe killing that first thing wasn't the right thing to do. Then again, if the Executioner was a manifestation of dark desires... Well, this at least. This seems more straightforward. This is a representation of Cabela's lost childhood, which does feel like it calls for a softer touch. And the lost child's tears were dried, and with a meek sigh she returned to nothingness. For mercy, too, can be the blade that brings peace. And a card of his tarot appeared in the Damon's hand. It was the Star, and the second doubt was dispelled. He is death. Okay. I mean, I kind of like that. Death and mercy, two sides of the same coin. That does feel like a pretty accurate representation of the duality of Valen. And the old Venny led the Daman to the upper decks, and the Daman entered into the officers' chambers. A web of veins adorned the walls, entangling the precious trophies, and the statues were bound in intertwining sinews. And high upon the balcony, the dismembered judge wailed as he attempted to reassemble himself with his pale hands. But his movements merely tightened the tangle of the flesh, turning the chambers into a snare. Such is a blade tangled and trapped in misunderstood teachings. A hapless creature that does not know its place in the world. In order to continue on his journey, the Daman... Okay, well, I mean, just at a glance, this one feels immediately obvious. He helped the judge by returning each of his organs to their proper place. And the judge became whole again and regained his comprehension of the world. For one who is wise can make whole what was broken. And a card of his tarot appeared in the Damon's hand. It was the Rogue Trader. And the third doubt was dispelled. He is death. Well, I've got a lot of misgivings about some of my choices here, especially killing the Executioner, but symbolically, I do like how this played out. Life and death, two sides of the same coin, the coin being the Rogue Trader. The trick is finding a balance between those two faces, something we can hopefully help Kibbles obtain. The flagship's bridge was draped in skulls and webs, and pale souls of the dead flocked to the foot of the throne upon which sat the undying Emperor, the protector of mankind. May his praises be innumerable. Starlight shone coldly in the eyes of his skull, and the galaxy rested in his mighty hand. The Daman approached his throne and went down on one knee, offering a prayer to him. The Undying One heeded the words spoken to him, and lowered his brow of bone, acknowledging that he had heard the prayer, as he had heard the Damon's other prayers before. Then the Undying One spoke. And these words are to be preserved in your heart as the greatest of prayers, for they sprang from the source that was and is the holiest of all things. I know you, Daman. I know your heart, and the softness that dwells within it. Many who were due to pass on to me remained alive as your heart willed. But I am not angered, for they will pass on to me in the end. The Undying Emperor, may his praises be innumerable, said no more. And it was the Damon's turn to speak. Then you know why I'm here. For my shadow. The skeletal fingers stirred, and the Damon's shadow loomed out of the darkness beside his throne. She was bound in black chains and asleep. The Undying One was silent. Now was the time to offer a payment, as death would give nothing away without payment in return. And the Daman promised the Undying One. Oh, Interesting. The iconoclast option is... It feels like it might be pretty nihilistic, but at the same time it would match up with the phrasing used when we first started this segment, that in death we all become nothing. So if that is true, if we embrace that ideal, that would, in theory, make the Emperor the Lord of Nothing, if we're viewing him as an embodiment of death. Definitely a grim interpretation, but then again, Grim and the Lord of Nothing, not exactly strangers. I mean, really, what are our other options here? I suppose it would be in character for Val to offer up his own life in exchange for someone else's, but if we are embracing this realm of the surreal, the metaphorious, nothing. For everything in the world is nothing, and the Undying One himself is Lord of Nothing. Those were true words, for everything is indeed nothing, and the Undying Emperor is Lord of Nothing. For all things live only to turn to dust in death. The Damon's wisdom pleased the Undying One. Then the Undying Emperor leant over the Daemon and drove a skeletal finger right into his heart, and he pulled at the scarlet thread of his soul, and the thread trembled, stretched to the limit. It was then that a revelation came to the Daemon. A life must be paid for a life, and a name was revealed to him, Naki Erebus. That was the life the Undying One demanded as payment. And the Daemon... We literally just said... Well, no, because that was the Emperor expecting us to offer something. This is the Emperor expressly asking us for something, which does feel different. The Daemon reluctantly agreed. An oath of blood was sworn, and the chains fell from the Daemon's shadow. Yet she remained silent and motionless, for she saw no sense in leaving the halls of death, to which the Daemon told her. Oh, interesting. Okay, well, 3 options, each with a very distinct appeal to it. The first being duty, the second, pride, the third, mercy? So if we distill them down to those basic essences, then obviously we'd want to lean mercy, at least if we're in keeping with the idea that she is a tool of death, or was honed as a tool of death, but we now wish to also temper and balance with mercy. I feel like that tracks. He told her that her congregation was suffering without her protection, and the Undying One's mercy. And there was clarity in the Shadow's soul, and her eyes opened. Her doubt was banished, and she glimpsed the truth in her Lord's words. Preserving the defenseless from heinous designs would give her strength. Eradicating the ruiners of souls would give her purpose. The Shadow would wrap the blood-spun's threads around the ship, and thus be redeemed of her flaws. He is death. Indeed. The Daemon and his Shadow left the bridge of the Undying Emperor. May his praises be innumerable, and their path was strewn with his tarot cards. Among them, the Daemon saw the card of the Executioner, who carries out sentences and brings a violent end to that which he did not begin. Among them, the Daemon saw the card of the Lost Child, who was torn from her roots and her support, but carries within her the still hidden seeds of a promise to recover them someday. Among them, the Daemon saw the card of the judge, who weighs and separates guilt from innocence and passes his verdict. And they descended into the lower bays, lay down in a stone coffin, and closed their eyes. And the Daemon heard the undying Emperor's voice, promise they would meet again, and soon. And thereupon their journey ended. And so it was that the Daemon, having seen death before his due time, traveled there and back to bring us these tidings and wisdom. Be free of doubt as you walk along the threads of the blood-spun web, for those threads lead to him, as does all of existence. He is death. As the shock of another mind's jumbled thought stops constricting your throat, you find yourself staring at Cabela's pale face. It has settled into a strange expression. Daemon. Valen? Cabela, are you okay? Were you aware of everything that just happened? I remember stumbling. I remember my doubt in the truth of the tenets throwing me off my feet. I remember deciding to kill, and not because I had heard his whisper, but because I deemed it to be right. Death whispered my name. For a spinner without a thread is like a sky without stars. They would drown in their own soul's darkness. But you have reminded me of who I am, and that my shameful weakness must be extinguished. Cabela looks away. This Naki Erebus is the payment the Undying One demands. The price of redemption. The price of freedom. Who is this person? Where are they from? I do not know. Help me find them, Daemon. Your factotum oversees archives that contain many names. Let him find the one that death has spoken, and I will pay the price that was set. For I know, I feel with all my essence, the death of Naki Erebus is the key, the answer to my questions. So she was aware. Interesting. And about that, Naki Erebus, so that does seem to confirm it's not a name we're familiar with. But I can't imagine they just introduce a completely new character. Not one pivotal to her backstory. This late in the campaign. The most obvious thing that springs to mind is the Vizier himself. We only know him by his title. But yeah, I do feel like, aside from the Finger of Sorrow, we probably are done with the Genestealer stuff. I think at this point, especially given the proximity to the end of the main campaign, we are now turning our sights towards the future, trying to determine where Cabela and, by extension, the cult will end up post-campaign. You know, their new purpose. After their ultimate success over the evil they were originally formed to oppose. At least that's my interpretation of it based on what we just went through. I am curious to hear what other people might think. That said, definitely not what I had planned for today, but still very interesting nonetheless. We'll hit the pause button for now. I'll take stock of where we currently stand. And we will pick up here next time. As, at the very least, we give Cabela the finger. See you then. Oh, and special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Erie V23, Revenant, Alois, Arrow Bowman, Dragon Matrix 7, Drakiith, EgonAlter, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, James Trimmier, Kazorm, Lady Shayna, Mark Giemza, Nathan Welch Jr., OverlordPherom, RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, if you'd also like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things. Trust me, it does make a difference. Or you could even check out the PayPal, the Patreon, the Nexus GG, or the YouTube memberships. Links are in the description.
I shall not fail.